welcome to this special episode of Cameo.
We are here at the 56th annual BFI London Film Festival.
And here's what's coming up on the show.
We'll look at some of this year's festival's highlights, such as Ben Affleck's latest film Argo, as well as smaller releases like Village at the End of the World and White Elephant.
We chat to the directors of Seven Psychopaths and The Reluctant Fundamentalist, as well as attending the press conference for Great Expectations.
But first we went to Leicester Square for the Crossfire Hurricane premiere.
Released to coincide with the 50th anniversary of one of rock and roll's greatest bands, Crossfire Hurricane is the new documentary from Oscar-nominated filmmaker Brett Morgan. With particular emphasis on the first 20 years of the band, the film charts the history of the Rolling Stones, while contextualising their music within the era in which it was created. In a manner similar to Senna, the film features no on-screen talking heads, as instead narrated through interviews conducted with the Stones themselves.
So, before we start, I just want to ask you, how's your memory?
However, this also leads to the film's biggest problem. As sole interviewees, as well as the film's producers, Crossfire Hurricane is essentially a celebration of the Rolling Stones, rather than an insightful critique. We give Crossfire Hurricane 4 out of 5.
In contrast to the frenzy of Crossfire Hurricane, Village at the End of the World is a contemplative documentary from British director Sarah Gavran. The film follows the inhabitants of a remote village in Greenland and raises questions about tradition, community and the environment. We met up with Sarah at the Mayfair Hotel to find out more. Do you personally have an opinion on whether the village would be able to sustain itself in the future?
I think it's hard to predict. I think they're going to struggle. The truth is, the ice is melting, which is going to change their hunting practices. And social media is opening, it's changing the mental landscape of someone like Lars, the teenager who now knows what's out there. I'd always thought it'd be interesting to make a documentary and exercise a different muscle in a way. And we went to this place and it seemed to lend itself to a documentary form. They're very hospitable by nature. Culturally, they're hospitable, the Greenlandic people. And they like children and they open their doors to us and we formed bonds, we formed friendships, which I think will continue.
Simple, beautifully shot and thought-provoking, Village at the End of the World gives insight into a community that's fighting to survive in the modern world. We give it 3 stars out of 5. From Mike Newell, the director of 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and David Nichols, the writer of One Day, comes this brand new adaptation of Charles Dickens' timeless classic Great Expectations. This coming-of-age story follows Pip, played by Jeremy Irvine, who prospers from a mysterious benefactor, all the while remaining captivated by Estella, played by Holliday Grainger, the adopted daughter of Bonham Carter's Miss Havisham. We went along to the film's press conference to see what the cast and crew had to say about their interpretation of the film.
I did want us to be faithful, but I also wanted to convey what I felt very, very strongly about it, that Dickens is a much subtler, much warmer, much more emotional, much more moving author than he's sometimes allowed to be.
As an actor, you always try and find some redeemable quality in the character you're playing. You always try to find some hook you can get on where you think, not that you want to make him likeable, but you somehow in your mind you feel you have to justify his actions. Yeah. With Jaggers, there's none.
So I love that character, and so I wanted to, sort of give it my best.
These are 2 people who, they're teenagers, and when they fall in love, it should be lustful, and if they want to scream at each other, then they should scream at each other, and it was a lot more real, I thought.
Sadly, the film doesn't live up to the quality its talent and pedigree promise. Although closer to the source than previous adaptations, this also makes it impenetrable for audiences unfamiliar with the text. This was a dull and disappointing film which we give 2 stars out of 5.
Seven Psychopaths is the second feature film from Martin McDonagh, the writer-director behind modern cult classic In Bruges. Here, Colin Farrell plays Hollywood scriptwriter struggling to complete his latest work, entitled Seven Psychopaths. Luckily, or perhaps terrifyingly, the inspiration isn't far away, thanks to his friends in the dog napping business, played by Christopher Walken and Sam Rockwell, the enemy they create in Woody Harrelson's mob boss after they steal his beloved Shih Tzu, and the mysterious Zachariah, played by Tom Waits.
Okay, you seem normal. Come on in. We gotta get this dog off the street because it's kidnapped from a maniac.
Dandy, did you go get my dog back?
Supremely knowing and self-referential, the film skips through a series of hilarious yet violent vignettes, all the while in search of a clear narrative thread. Although at times thought-provoking, they also give the film a fragmentary and disjointed feel. However, with terrific performances from Walken and Rockwell, a witty, intelligent script, and some great visual comedy, there's a lot to enjoy and admire about Seven Psychopaths. We give it 4 out of 5.
Put your hands up.
No,
But I've got a gun.
I don't care.
It doesn't make any sense.
Too bad.
You've got an amazing cast lined up here. A lot of the stars are quite famous for playing unstable characters. So did you give them a lot of direction when you were sort of coming up with the psychopathic characters, or did you give them free rein?
Kind of free rein, but in some ways some of the people you'd expect to be more psychopathic because of their past films aren't so much. So that was part of the fun of this. For me as a director, I think the biggest thing is to hire the best actors around and then kind of not direct them too much. Just let them, make sure they stick to the script, but just let them go.
Colin Farrell's character Martin seems to be struggling to find inspiration.
Yeah.
Is that something you can sympathise with? Have you struggled to find inspiration before?
No, I think he's a bit of a wuss for not being able to come up with... I think I'm really lazy, but I've never had writer's block.
Some of your films, they have this mix of black humour and violence. Do you see those two sort of themes being connected?
I don't know. My comedy always comes out kind of dark, and I don't know why. But I don't think it necessarily has to have violence in it. And I think this is as far down the violence road as I'm going to go.
It's about 7 fucking psychopaths!
I want to know what happens at the end.
Shiver in the dark, it's raining in the park, but meantime sound of the river, you stop and you hold everything. A band is blowing.
If I'm doing a fake movie, it's going to be a fake hit.
After Gone Baby Gone and The Town, Ben Affleck returns to cement his reputation as a solid director with Argo. The film tells the incredible story of the exfiltration of 6 American embassy workers from Tehran in 1980.
Brits turned them away, Kiwis turned them away, Canadians took them in.
It's going to take a miracle to get them out.
Based on a true life story, the film uses archive footage to great effect, especially when depicting the student protesters who have taken control of the embassy from which the Americans have escaped. The seemingly impossible task of rescuing them and bringing them back to America is taken on by Agent Tony Mendez, played by Ben Affleck.
This is what I do. I get people out, and I've never left anyone behind.
Tension and anticipation are subtly balanced in the film by the humour that's present. Affleck comes up with a plan to save the Americans and seeks the advice of producer Lester Siegel, played by Alan Arkin, and John Chambers, a special effects expert played by John Goodman. They create a fake production company and Affleck manages to persuade the Americans to pose as members of the crew. With a great supporting cast, including a noteworthy performance by Bryan Cranston, a detailed production design, and Affleck's most accomplished directorial feature to date, Argo is a stunning achievement, and we give it 5 stars.
So there you have it. Argo is our top pick from this year's festival.
Well, that's all from us. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed it as much as we did.